It's one of my favorite Konglish shirts. I only have 4 Konglish shirts, but this is one of my favorite. So how do you think? I don't. What does it mean? I don't know. I don't. I don't know. Why is there an why 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 why? I don't know. Welcome to City English. I'm Cherry. City, C.I.T.Y, stands for Can I Teach You? Can I teach you about teaching English to adults in Korea? So, usually when you read blogs or watch YouTube videos, you're listening or learning about teaching children in Korea. Most English teachers in Korea teach children. In order to be an English teacher in Korea, you need to have a visa. And an E2 visa requires a 4-year degree and that you be from the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, the United Kingdom, or Ireland. So if you have a 4-year degree and you're from one of those countries, you can be an English teacher in Korea and get an E2 visa. Usually, you will then teach at a public school or a private institute called a hagwon. Private institute and private school are different. So, a private institute is called a hagwon. And generally, with an E2 visa, we teach kindergarten, elementary school, and middle school. E2 visa holders teach speaking and conversation. And for that reason, we usually don't teach high schoolers because high schoolers learn a lot of grammar for their college entrance exam. So they don't do a lot of speaking. So usually E2 visa holders don't teach high schoolers. Uh, Sometimes if you watch videos about teaching adults, you'll find people who have F visas. F visa is a residency visa. Those are people who are married to Koreans or got permanent residency through the point system. And so they have more flexibility because they are not working always for an institute. When you work for an institute that holds your visa, there are restrictions. You cannot tutor. You have a set schedule. So F visas who teach adults, they have more flexibility. They can teach when they want, where they want, how they want. They can make their own prices. So their situation is a little different. There are not a ton of adult English speaking positions in Korea simply because there are not as many adults wanting to speak English. No, correction. There are not as many adults taking class to speak English. Korean adults will do online classes, they will do phone English from the Philippines, they will read books, they will watch EBS. There are tons of different ways for them to learn English. So they don't all go to institutes. Also, if they're learning English for a test like TOEFL or IELTS or TOEIC, they'll tend to learn from a Korean teacher. So they come to foreign teachers to learn speaking. So there are fewer adult English jobs. And so getting one of these jobs is a little bit of luck and a little bit of skill, a little bit of maybe a lot of luck. I've been in Korea for 5 years, and during that time, all 5 years, I've taught adults, and 2 of those years I've taught children, and they're 2 entirely different beasts. Um, Honestly, I think teaching adults is harder. It's more stressful. It is more, not physically draining, but a little bit more taxing. So let's talk about the hardest part about teaching adults. The hardest part is split shift. When you teach adults, you teach them in the morning and the evening, and you have a break in the middle of the day. So an average adult teaching schedule will be 6 a.m. to noon, and then again at night from 6 p.m. to midnight, and you'll have breaks in between there. Um, and then with adults, you will generally teach them on Friday nights and also 2 Saturdays a month. Depending on your institute, it might be 1 Saturday or 4 Saturdays. It all depends. But if you're coming to Korea to have fun and party and be free, then teaching adults is not for you. There is no going out on a Tuesday night. There may not even be going out on a Friday night. You will work. I've taught with a good 25 different teachers. And so some of my opinions are based on working with them and seeing how they teach. Sometimes the new teachers come in and I tell them, you're going to be tired, you're going to be drained. And they go, well, no, I don't take naps. I'm not going to take a nap. I'm not going to need a nap. 2.5 weeks later, they're dying. They're so like drinking coffee every second of the day. They're complaining, they're tired, they're fatigued. And I'm like, take a nap. You're going to need to take a nap. If you're not going to take a nap, then you're going to struggle. Now, during this time, it's not like we take all naps. You can go to the gym, you can study, you can do a ton of things, but you're probably going to need a nap sometime. If you don't take naps, it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough. A lot of people also want to teach adults because they think they just get to come in and have conversation. So they think, oh, I sit down, I have a conversation, and that's my life. And I just get to talk to Koreans all day. It ain't that easy. There are two extremes. So there are the boring teachers. They are the by the book teachers. They follow the book, they follow the curriculum, they don't do anything creative. They may not share a lot of their personal life with their students, so they're kind of quiet and like keep to themselves. Students hate that. They will refund a lot because they figure that I can read a book at home by myself. I want a teacher who gives me something more. I want a teacher who teaches something. I want a teacher I feel comfortable with, a teacher who feels like a friend. When you teach children, children will generally go to the same institute for about a year, or as long as their friends go, they go to that institute. So the numbers, withdrawals, refunds, they don't affect you as much. With adults, when they refund, it's your fault. So it doesn't matter if they're going out of the country, doesn't matter if they moved, got a new schedule, had a baby, those refunds count against you. And not only the refunds, but re-registration. Do they come back the next month or the next term? If they're not coming back, that counts against you. So you have to be more aware of keeping your students happy. And so the other end of the coin is the other side of the coin. I don't speak English very well anymore. I've been here too long. The narcissistic teachers, the teachers who are adult teachers because they are, look at me, 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 me. And they're always on, and it's always a performance. Ask me about me. Let's talk about me. Let me tell you about me. Students actually like these classes to a degree because, especially with the teachers that are very personable or have a good personality, they're very fun classes because there's no English. But then the students reflect later and they're like, there was no English. I didn't learn anything. I learned about my teacher, but I didn't learn any English. So those teachers that make the class about themselves or feel like they just can have fun, they have a problem. And those teachers that only follow the book, they have a problem. So you have to have balance. If your class is all speaking and no worksheets, no grammar structure, no instruction, students are going to complain and they're going to refund. If your class is all listening and you're just basically lecturing at them and they don't get a chance to speak, your students are going to complain. They're going to refund. If your class is all book and you don't add anything, so they don't think you're a creative teacher, they don't think that you care, they're going to complain and they're going to refund. If there's no grammar correction, so you may be doing all the bits and pieces that you're supposed to do, but you're not fixing their mistakes, they're going to complain, you're going to have problems. So you have to balance your class and your style. Your style is going to vary depending on the hour, depending on the makeup of the student body. So you have to be prepared to be different. So 6 a.m., you've got to have the energy to teach your students. You have to be the the person that wakes them up and makes them feel like I can get through the day. So you have to be bright and cheery at 6 a.m. When you have 7 a.m., you have the business students who are tired and they are trying to balance work and they're trying to balance English class, and they just don't always have the focus that you need because they've got a meeting in 35 minutes. When you get to about 9 a.m., 10 a.m., you get the housewives or the older people who are trying to like stave off dementia by studying English, or depending on if it's January or July, you get the university students. And so you have a mix that you have to balance personalities, because they may not like this student because they're in a lower level. They may not like this man because he talks too much. They may not like this, and you have to balance all those personalities into a functional class. And then at night, you have a whole mix, and you have to have the energy to get them through the next hour or two before they go home. And they're thinking, I'm hungry, I want to see my family, but they've got to study English. So you have to be able to balance all the personalities, the different classes, the different styles. Free talking classes, not like business classes, not like regular classes, not like OPIC classes, not like TOEFL classes, not like IELTS class. They all have to have their own kind of personality. So you need to be able to balance not only your class components, but your style. Adults are honest, and they will talk about you. They will talk about you to other students. They will talk about you to other teachers. They will talk about you to the staff. How you look matters. If they think that you are kind of sloppy or that you don't care, then they kind of think you don't care about being a teacher and you didn't put in the effort. If they think you're pretty, they might take your class just to look at you. If you're a handsome man, they might take your class just to look at you. They might not like your style of teaching. Like, they might think you're a horrible teacher, but just because you're handsome, they might take your class. So in teaching adults, appearance does play a factor. It's not, there's a stereotype that you have to be blonde and white and skinny to be an English teacher in Korea. That's not so true, but appearance does matter. And your schools will have evaluations. So they'll assess you by your refund rate, by your re-registration rate, by your evaluation scores, by your ranking, by the number of complaints that you get at the front desk, by the number of requests that you get at the front desk. All of these things matter when you are teaching adults. So that's sucky. You have to know what you're talking about when you teach adults. When you teach children, they're not going to ask you complex grammar questions, and you can tell them whatever you want, and you can give them whatever reason you want, and it's okay. But Korean adults know grammar. They know grammar better than you. And so when I first started, my first 4 to 6 months were rough because I didn't know grammar. And even now, sometimes students will ask me and I'll be like, why? Is that an adjective? I think I'm not sure. Let me check. And so we're trained that, I'll find out and I'll get back to you. No, I will check right then and there, because I need my students to know there are some things I don't know, and I will find out and we will learn together. But you need to know what you're talking about. So if you have no grasp of English and you have no ability to explain things clearly, this is important. You have to be able to explain things clearly and concisely. If your explanation is more confusing, they're not going to be happy. I've had people, really great coworkers, really great understanding of English grammar, but they spoke too much. Their explanations were too long, and so students just got lost. Not only do you need to know what you are talking about, but you have to be open-minded about Korean culture, and it doesn't hurt to learn a little bit of the Korean language. So let's start with Korean language. When you learn the Korean language, you have a better understanding of why they make certain mistakes, why they say some things that they do, why they can't remember to say the S. In Korean, there are no plurals. I mean, you can add the, but usually they don't. And in Korean, words don't end with S. So even when Koreans are reading, they skip the S because their brain is like, we don't say that. So when you understand or learn Korean, then you can understand some of the mistakes and you can help them to understand why they make the mistakes. You may not be able to fix them, but you can at least give them the explanation of why, because students are always frustrated. Why is this so hard for me? Why don't I understand? Why can't I do this? And if you can tell them exactly why they do something, it kind of alleviates some of their stress. Being open-minded about Korean culture is also really important. If you have this idea that there is a certain way that things should be, if you are very black and white, cut and dry, Korean life is going to be hard, and teaching adults in Korean is going to be even harder. Korea and the US are very different. The culture is different. The way of thinking is different. Koreans do things, and I'm like, why do you do that? I don't understand, but I accept it. If you are the kind of person, I don't understand, I don't want to accept it, you're going to have a hard time living in Korea. And you're going to have an even harder time having a conversation with students, because you have to be able to kind of put your feelings aside and be diplomatic when they say things that you might find offensive, or when they think things that you might not agree with. You have to be very diplomatic about it, but inside sometimes it kind of hurts. So being open-minded is really important, not only to being a good teacher, but to surviving here. My friends who only spend time with foreigners, they have a harder time, and they're usually 1 year and done. Whereas my friends who spend a lot of time with Koreans can last a little bit longer because they have a better understanding of Korean culture. That is the best part of teaching adults. The best part of teaching adults is you get to understand Korea and Korean culture at a level that most other people don't, because you meet so many different people with so many different personalities, and you get a lot of insight. And because these students, they want to be your friend, they introduce you to things you might never have thought of. So I have a lot of Korean friends, but my Korean friends, we have a lot in common. That's why they're my friends. So the things I like are the things they like. Whereas Korean students will introduce you to things you never thought of. And you get to visit their apartments and go to weddings and baby showers and see like parts of Korean culture that you might not get to see if you don't know a lot of Koreans. And they buy you coffee and take you places. That is also a lovely perk of teaching adults. So I have gotten to know a lot about Korea, a lot about Korean culture. I would not change my experience of teaching adults for anything, but at the same time, I am always tired. I am learning how lack of sleep has a long-term effect on your health. I worry about things that I wouldn't worry about if I were teaching children. I worry more about how I look. I worry more about what I say. So it does affect you in terms of just the way you live your life here. I think those are the main things that I can think of. So if there's anything that I didn't tell you about teaching adults, please leave a question or comment below. Usually this channel is to teach English to adults. So if you'd like tips on teaching adults as well, please let me know. Have a fabulous day, and I'll see you next time.